Evening comes softly to old Istanbul. The sky above the hills turns the color of ash and rose, and the first thin rain begins to fall, so light at first that it is almost a whisper. It touches the lead domes of the mosques and the tiled roofs of the houses, and every surface answers in a small, patient voice. Down along the water, the Bosphorus darkens slowly, holding the last of the daylight the way a bowl holds warm milk. Smoke rises from countless chimneys and bends beneath the rain. The city breathes out its long day, and the night begins to gather, gentle and unhurried, over roof and dome and shore. On the darkening water, the last boats of the day are crossing home. A kayık, one of the slim rowing boats of the harbor, slides toward the far shore of Üsküdar, its oars dipping in a slow and even rhythm. The boatman wears a cloak of oiled wool against the rain, and his passengers sit close together beneath a shared blanket, watching the lamps of the shore come near. Each stroke of the oars leaves a soft ring of ripples that the rain gently erases. The water carries the sound away. One by one, the boats reach their landings and are tied and grow still, rocking quietly in the dark. In the heart of the city, the covered bazaar is closing for the night. Under its long stone vaults, the merchants fold their carpets and draw wooden shutters over shelves of copper and silk. The smell of the day still lingers there, cinnamon and leather and rosewater, settling into the cool air like dust. An old keeper walks the arched lanes with a lantern, trying each lock with a soft rattle, nodding to the last shopkeepers as they go. Then the great gates swing shut, heavy and sure, and the bazaar keeps its treasures in the dark, warm and folded and safe, while the rain murmurs on the domes above. Out in the narrow streets, a simit seller packs away his tray. Simit are the round sesame breads of the city, and the few that remain still hold a little warmth from the morning oven. He wraps them in a clean cloth, ties the corners, and lifts the tray to his shoulder for the walk home. Along the lane, other doors are closing gently, and shutters meet their sills with soft wooden sounds. A cat steps from a doorway, sniffs the rain, and thinks better of it, curling instead on a dry step beneath an awning. The seller passes, the lane grows quiet, and the smell of sesame lingers a while. Across the hills, the lamps of Istanbul appear one by one, like slow stars finding their places. In a window above the harbor, a mother sets an oil lamp on the sill and draws the curtain half closed. In a coffee house, the keeper trims his wicks and the small flames steady and glow. Lamplight falls in soft gold pools on the wet cobbles, and the rain passes through the light in fine bright threads. Up and down the slopes, the little fires answer one another, hill to hill, window to window, until the whole city is stitched together with warm points of light, resting under the gray wool of the sky. On its green point above the meeting of the waters stands Topkapi, the palace of the sultans, quiet behind its long pale walls. Rain gathers on its lead domes and slips down in silver threads to the gardens, where cypress trees stand dark and patient. Within the first great courtyard, the plane trees drip softly onto gravel, and doves settle deeper into their sheltered ledges. Here and there a lantern glows in a doorway, small and gold against the wet stone. The palace has heard the day's footsteps fade. Now it holds only quiet rooms, banked fires, and sleeping birds, and the rain tends to it gently all night long. Inside the palace walls, an old watchman named Emin begins his evening rounds. He has kept these nights for many years, and his steps know every stone. He carries a small oil lamp under his cloak to shield it from the rain, and its glow warms his hands as he walks. He listens to the rain on the courtyard trees and finds it good company. Ahead of him, across the wet gravel, rises the Gate of Felicity, the tall doorway to the inner courts, its canopy dark against the sky. Emin walks toward it slowly, in no hurry at all, and the lamps burn low, and the night goes on. The last light of the city fades behind the rain, and the great walls of Topkapi Palace rise dark and quiet above the water. Down in the streets the shutters are closed now, and the lamps of the houses glow small and gold behind them. The rain falls softly on the lead domes of the palace, a slow and even sound, like breathing. Along the outer wall the plane trees drip from every leaf. A gull settles on the parapet, folds its wings and grows still. The palace waits at the top of its hill, warm inside its stone, while the evening turns gently into night and the rain goes on. At the Gate of Felicity, the tall white gate with its wide sloping roof, the day watch is ending. The guards of the daylight hours gather their cloaks and speak in low, easy voices with the men who will keep the night. There is nothing to report and nothing to hurry for. Keys pass from one warm hand to another. The day guards bow their heads gently and walk off towards supper and sleep, their boots soft on the wet stone. The night guards settle into their places beneath the eaves, where the rain cannot reach them, and the changing of the watch is done, as quietly as the turning of a page. Emin, the old night watchman, comes slowly across the courtyard with his lantern unlit in his hand. He has walked these rounds for many years, and his feet know every stone. In the shelter of the gatehouse, he sets the lantern down, lifts its little glass door, and touches a taper to the wick. The flame takes hold, small and steady, and a circle of warm gold opens around him on the wet paving. He closes the glass door with care. The rain patters on the roof above him, gentle as fingertips. Emin straightens his wool cloak, takes up the lantern, and the light sways softly with each of his slow steps. By the gate, the night guards have a brazier, a low iron basket of charcoal, and its coals breathe a soft orange glow into the dark. Emin stops beside it and holds out his hands, and the warmth climbs gently into his fingers. The guards make room for him, easy and familiar. One stirs the coals with a rod, and small sparks rise and fade like drowsy fireflies. They speak of simple things, the rain, the good smell of the smoke, the quiet of the courtyards, and then they do not speak at all. The charcoal settles with a soft sigh. The rain threads off the eaves in thin silver lines. Emin bows good night to the guards and begins his first slow round. He walks beneath the arcades, the long covered walkways whose arches march along the edge of the courtyard, and his lantern light slides gently over the painted ceilings above him. Rain falls just beyond the pillars, a curtain of soft sound, and he stays dry within it. His steps are unhurried, for there is nowhere to hurry to. Each door he passes is shut and sleeping. Each lamp in its niche burns low and steady. The old stones underfoot are smooth from long years of quiet walking, and Emin adds his own soft steps to theirs, one after another, on and on. A palace cat appears at the edge of the lantern light, a small gray shape with rain-silvered whiskers. She has found a dry corner beneath the arcade, on a folded sack of wool left by the gate, and she watches Emin pass with slow, golden eyes. He murmurs a soft word to her, as he always does. She tucks her paws beneath her chest and lets her eyes close. Somewhere far below, the Bosphorus moves against the shore, a deep and patient sound beneath the rain. The lantern light drifts on along the arches. The cat is already asleep, warm in her corner, and the night folds gently around her. At the far side of the courtyard, Emin pauses beneath the last arch and lifts his head. Across the wet paving stand the tall chimneys of the palace kitchens, row upon row against the soft gray sky, and from one of them a thin ribbon of smoke still rises into the rain. The air carries the faint, kind smell of bread and wood ash. A low window glows amber where the bakers keep their embers warm for morning. Emin smiles beneath his hood and turns his slow steps that way, in no hurry at all. The rain sifts down over the domes and chimneys, and the lamp burns lower, and the night goes on. The rain goes on, soft and steady, over the courtyard Emin has just left behind. He walks with his lantern held low, past the wet cypress trees, toward a row of tall chimneys where warm smoke rises and mixes with the rain. These are the palace kitchens, a long house of domes where bread for the whole palace is made. Even now, late in the night, a golden light glows under the doorways, and the smell of baking drifts out to meet him. It is a good smell, warm and simple. Emin slows his steps to enjoy it. The rain patters on the lead domes above, and the night goes on. Inside, the bakers are finishing their quiet work. The great stone ovens have given their last loaves of the evening, and now the men rake the embers into soft red hills, banking the fire so it will sleep warm until morning. Ash settles like gray snow. One baker wipes the long wooden peel, the flat paddle used for sliding bread in and out, and hangs it on its hook. Flour dust floats in the lamplight, slow as falling stars. Tomorrow there will be fresh bread again, round and golden, but that is a thought for tomorrow. Tonight the ovens only breathe, low and even, keeping their warmth like a secret. At the far end of the kitchen, one old cook remains at his pot. He is making halva, the sweet dish of butter and flour and sugar, stirred slowly over a low flame until it turns the color of amber. His wooden spoon moves in gentle circles, around and around, never hurrying. The sweetness rises with the steam and settles into the rafters, where it will stay all night. He hums an old song under his breath, a song his mother once hummed. When the halva is done, he covers the pot with a soft cloth, letting it rest until morning. The flame sinks low, and the sweetness stays, and the rain goes on. Along the walls, the day's work hangs clean and shining. Copper cauldrons, scrubbed until they glow like small moons, rest on their hooks in long rows. Ladles and pans and round-bellied kettles drip their last drops of rinsing water onto the stone floor, a slow and tiny music, softer than the rain outside. The lamplight finds each curve of copper and warms it to the color of honey. A scullery man passes down the row with a dry cloth, giving one pot and then another a final gentle polish, more from habit than from need. Then he too sets down his cloth. The copper shines quietly to itself in the dark. Near the warmest hearth, the scullery boys are already asleep. They lie on straw mats with wool blankets pulled to their chins, their faces soft in the ember light, their breathing slow and deep. The youngest still holds a heel of bread in his hand, saved from supper, forgotten now in sleep. One of the palace cats, gray with white paws, steps carefully between the sleepers and folds itself against a boy's back, borrowing his warmth and lending its own. The hearth ticks softly as it cools. Outside, the rain keeps its steady rhythm on the domes, like a hand patting a cradle, and every sleeper sinks a little deeper. Emin stands in the doorway a while, letting the warmth reach his hands. The old halva cook sees him and pours him a cup of warm sherbet, a sweet drink of fruit and honey with a whisper of cinnamon on top. They do not speak much. There is no need. An old cook, an old watchman, a warm kitchen, rain on the roof. It is enough. Emin drinks slowly, feeling the warmth travel through him like a kindness. Steam curls from the cup and disappears into the shadows above. When the cup is empty, he nods his thanks, and the cook nods back, and both nods say the same soft thing: all is well. At last, Emin steps back into the night, drawing his cloak against the gentle rain. Behind him, the kitchens breathe their warm, bread-scented breath into the dark. Ahead, the courtyard glistens, every wet stone holding a little piece of lamplight. Far across the way, one small window still glows amber where a scribe sits laid over his pages, his lamp a single steady star in the sleeping palace. Emin turns his slow steps toward that light in no hurry at all, for the night is long and kind. The rain falls softly on the lead domes, on the cypress trees, on all of old Istanbul, and the lamp burns on, and the night goes on. The warm smell of bread follows Emin a little way down the corridor, then fades gently into the smell of rain. He walks without hurry past the darkened kitchen courtyard, where the great chimneys stand quiet against the wet sky, their fires banked for the night. Ahead, across a garden of dripping cypress trees, one small window still glows amber in the chancery, the long room where the palace letters are written. A cat trots beside him for a few steps, then slips away under an archway to somewhere dry. The rain falls softly on the lead domes above, patient and steady, and the one lit window waits like a small ember in the dark. Inside the chancery, a young scribe sits cross-legged on a cushion at a low wooden desk, finishing the last letter of the day. His reed pen, cut by his own hand, moves slowly across the paper, leaving lines of dark ink that shine wet in the lamplight. An oil lamp burns beside him with a small, steady flame, and its light makes a golden circle on the desk, on the paper, on his quiet hands. Outside, the rain taps at the wooden lattice of the window, soft as fingertips, keeping time with the pen. He is in no hurry. The letter is nearly done, and the night is long and kind. The last line ends, and the scribe sets down his pen with care. From a small brass shaker, he sprinkles fine sand across the page, and the sand drinks the wet ink slowly, the way dry earth drinks a gentle rain. He waits, listening to the water running from the roof gutters into the garden below. Then he tilts the paper and pours the sand back into its little pot, every grain returning home. The letter is dry now, finished, at rest. He lays it on the pile with the others, smooths it once with his palm, and the lamp flame bows and rises softly, as if nodding that the work is good. One by one, the scribe cleans his reed pens, wiping each dark tip on a soft cloth until it is smooth and dry. He lines them up in their wooden case like small travelers lying down for the night and closes the lid with a quiet click. The brass inkwell is capped. The leather-bound ledgers, heavy with the day's accounts, are stacked into a neat tower on the shelf, largest at the bottom, smallest on top, the way it is always done. The room grows tidier with every slow movement, and tidier means sleepier somehow. Rain taps the lattice. The lamp burns lower. The long desk is almost bare now, and glad of it. A soft footstep sounds in the corridor, and Emin, the old night watchman, appears in the doorway with his lantern held low. He and the young scribe know each other in the way of people who share the same quiet hours. No words are needed. The scribe nods toward the corner, where a small charcoal brazier still holds its warmth, and a copper pot of tea sits steaming gently upon it. Emin sets his lantern by the door and lowers himself onto a cushion with slow, easy care. The tea is poured into small glasses, amber and warm, and the rain goes on tapping its patient song at the window. They drink their tea in silence, the old watchman and the young scribe, and the silence is a comfortable one, worn soft by many nights like this. Steam rises from the glasses and curls into the lamplight. Somewhere below the palace walls, the Bosphorus moves in the dark, carrying the rain out toward the sea, and the sound of it is more a feeling than a sound. A gray cat pads in from the corridor, circles once, and settles against the warm side of the brazier. The scribe's eyes are heavy in the kindest way. Emin refills his glass halfway, no more, and the rain keeps its promise on and on all night. At last the glasses are empty, and Emin rises, and the scribe pinches out the lamp, letting the room fold itself into soft darkness. They part at the doorway with a small bow each, easy as breathing. The scribe goes toward his bed, and Emin turns the other way, down a covered walk where rain drips from the eaves in slow silver threads. Ahead, across a quiet courtyard, stands the library, its thick stone walls keeping row upon row of sleeping books warm and dry. A single candle glows faintly behind its window, patient as a small star, and Emin walks toward it through the gentle rain, unhurried, and the night goes on. Down the corridor from the scribe's small chamber, past the last of his candle glow, a wooden door stands half open on a room full of books. This is the palace library, warm with the smell of paper and old leather, and beneath it, faint as memory, the sweetness of rosewater. Rain taps the lead roof above the shelves, steady and soft, the same rain that has followed the night from courtyard to courtyard. A single candle burns behind a pane of glass, its flame held still and small. The shelves rise into shadow, patient and full, and the rain goes on, and the night settles deeper around the sleeping palace. The old librarian moves among the shelves with a taper in his hand, slow as the hour itself. He has kept these books for most of his life, and he knows each one the way a shepherd knows his flock. His slippers whisper on the carpet. Here a manuscript lies open on a reading stand, its inks of gold and deep blue resting in the candlelight. He closes it gently, the way one draws a blanket over a sleeping child. The rain hums against the shuttered windows. Shelf by shelf he passes, touching a spine here, a cover there, and the books settle into their long and quiet rest. In the deepest corner of the room, the rarest volumes rest in a cabinet of walnut wood. The librarian straightens a leaning book with two careful fingers, easing it back among its brothers until the row stands even. Then he draws a cloth of soft green silk over the oldest manuscripts, tucking the edges the way a mother tucks a quilt. The cloth smells faintly of rosewater, sprinkled there long ago to keep the pages sweet. Outside, the rain continues its patient work on the domes. Inside, everything is order and warmth and stillness, and the cabinet door closes with a small wooden sigh, and the room breathes slower. By the window, a candle burns inside a lantern of glass, which holds the flame small and safe beside the sleeping pages. The librarian lifts the pane and trims the wick with a small pair of brass scissors, and the flame steadies, round and golden like a little sun content with its small sky. A palace cat has found its way in, as the palace cats always do, and it curls on a cushion by the shelf of poetry, one ear turning toward the rain. The librarian lets it stay. The lantern glows. The cat's breathing slows to match the room, and the flame burns lower, and the night goes on. Emin, the old night watchman, pauses at the library door on his slow round through the palace. He does not need to enter. He only likes to see the light. Through the gap he watches the glass lantern glowing among the shelves, and the librarian raising a hand in quiet greeting, and the cat asleep on its cushion. Emin nods, and the nod says all is well, as it has said on 1,000 rainy nights before this one. His lantern and the librarian's candle shine toward each other for a moment, two small warmths in the great stone palace. Then Emin walks on, unhurried, and the rain keeps him company. The round is finished, and the librarian settles into his chair, a deep old chair softened by years of exactly this. He opens a book of travels, tales of distant harbors and gardens he has visited only in ink. The rain reads along with him, tapping softly at the shutters. His eyes move slower down the page. The words begin to blur into the warm light, pleasantly, the way a road blurs into evening. His head tips toward his shoulder. The book rests open on his chest, rising and falling with his breath, and the candle behind its glass keeps watch over them both, and the library sleeps with its keeper. Beyond the library window, the rain falls on toward the next courtyard, where tall cypresses stand in a quiet row, darker than the dark. Their branches hold the rain the way the shelves hold their books, patiently, without complaint. Far below the palace walls, the Bosphorus moves in its sleep, carrying the lights of a few late lamps along the far shore. The gravel paths shine faintly. Everything is walking slowly toward morning, and morning is still far away. The last page of the night turns somewhere on its own, softly, and the cypresses wait in the rain, and the courtyard breathes its green breath, and the palace dreams on. The library door closes softly behind Emin, and the smell of old paper gives way to the smell of rain. He stands beneath the eaves of the colonnade, his lantern warm in his hand, and looks out at the courtyard of cypresses. The tall trees rise dark and patient against the clouded sky, and the rain falls through them in a long, unhurried whisper. Wet stone shines faintly in the lamplight. Somewhere below the walls, the Bosphorus moves in its sleep. Emin pulls his wool cloak a little closer and begins his slow walk along the covered path, and the rain keeps falling, and the night goes on. In the middle of the garden, a marble fountain stands full to its brim. All evening the rain has been feeding it, drop by drop, and now the water rises just over the carved edge and slips down the sides in a thin, silver sheet. The sound it makes is softer than the rain itself, a small and steady pouring, the kind of sound a garden makes when no one is asking anything of it. Fallen cypress needles float on the surface and turn in slow circles. The fountain does not hurry and does not stop. It simply overflows gently into the dark, and the water finds its way, and the garden listens. The cypresses stand in a quiet row along the garden wall, taller than the rooftops, older than anyone now sleeping in the palace. Rain gathers in their dark branches and travels slowly downward, needle to needle, until each tree drips at its own gentle pace. The air beneath them smells of resin and wet earth, a green and ancient smell that belongs to autumn nights. Emin passes below with his lantern, and the light touches the lowest boughs and lets them go again. The trees have watched many rains like this one. They sway just barely, just enough, and the drops keep falling from their branches, soft as sleep. Under the colonnade, where the stone stays dry, the palace cats have found their places for the night. One is curled on a step warmed all day by a kitchen wall. Another sleeps in a coil of rope left by the gardeners, its tail wrapped neatly over its nose. A gray one watches the rain with half-closed eyes, blinking slower and slower. The cats know every dry corner of the palace, every warm ledge, every sheltered sill. When Emin's lantern passes, they do not stir. The light slides over their soft fur and moves on, and the rain stays outside where it belongs. And the cats sleep, and the night goes on. At the far end of the garden stands the gardener's shed, its wooden door left unlatched, its small window dark. Inside, the tools hang in patient rows. Rakes and worn trowels, coils of twine, clay pots stacked one inside another like nesting bowls. The shed smells of dry soil and cut stems, of seeds sleeping in paper packets until spring. Rain taps on the low roof with a sound like fingertips, light and even. Everything here has been put away with care by hands that know the work well. Nothing is needed until morning. The tools rest on their hooks, the twine holds its coils, and the rain plays softly on the roof. Near the shed, the last roses of autumn lean under the weight of the rain. Their petals are full of water, heavy and bright, and each bloom bows a little toward the earth, the way a head nods when sleep is close. Drops gather at the tips of leaves, hold on for a moment and let go. The scent of roses mixes with the smell of wet stone and drifts along the path. A gardener planted these long ago, and they have bloomed every year since, asking nothing but rain and light. Tonight they have all the rain they could wish for. They bow lower and rest, and the garden grows still. At the edge of the courtyard, Emin pauses and lifts his eyes above the cypresses. There, past the wet rooftops, a single window glows high in a stone tower, warm and small against the clouds. It is the tower of the palace astronomer, the quiet man who watches the sky and charts the slow wheeling of the stars. Even on a rainy night, his lamp is lit, patient as everything else in the palace. Emin smiles beneath his hood and turns his steps that way, unhurried as always. The fountain murmurs behind him, the cats sleep on. The rain falls softly, and the lamp in the tower burns on, and the night goes on. At the edge of the Courtyard of Cypresses, where the wet trees breathe their quiet green smell into the dark, a narrow stone stair winds upward inside a small tower. Emin, the old night watchman, pauses at its foot on his slow round and looks up. A soft light glows in the window at the top, steady as a moored lantern. The palace astronomer is awake up there, as he is awake most nights, keeping gentle company with the sky. Emin nods to the light as if to an old friend, pulls his wool cloak closer and walks on. The rain falls softly on the stair, and the tower holds its glow. High in the tower room, the astronomer sits among his quiet instruments. A brass astrolabe, a round tool for measuring the heavens, rests on a cushion of dark velvet. Rolled charts lean in a corner like sleeping reeds. A single oil lamp burns on the low table, its flame small and golden, and a brazier of cedar coals warms the room with sweet smoke. The astronomer wears a robe of soft brown wool, and his slippers are lined with felt. Outside, rain taps the shutters in a patient rhythm. He is in no hurry. The sky will show itself when it wishes, and the lamp burns lower, and the night goes on. On the table beside the chart stands a small cup of coffee, poured hours ago and long gone cold. The astronomer does not mind. Cold coffee is part of waiting, and waiting is part of his gentle work. He opens one shutter a hand's width and watches the rain drift across the dark roofs of the palace below. Lead domes shine faintly, washed and smooth. Far off, the Bosphorus moves under the clouds, a wide ribbon of deeper dark. The astronomer breathes the cool, wet air, closes the shutter to a sliver, and folds his hands in his sleeves. The rain softens, little by little, as if it too were growing sleepy. Slowly, gently, the clouds over the water begin to thin. They part the way curtains part when a careful hand draws them, without sound, without haste. Above the Bosphorus, a small window of night sky opens, and in it hang a handful of stars, clear and calm, like lamps in a far high room. The astronomer opens his shutter wide and stands very still, letting the starlight rest in his eyes. The rain has paused over the strait, though it still whispers on the domes behind him. The stars do not hurry, and neither does he. He simply watches, warm in his wool robe, while the night rests, wide and quiet. Now the astronomer turns to his charts. He unrolls one across the low table and weights its corners with smooth stones the color of honey. With a reed pen dipped in dark ink, he makes small, careful marks, one for each star the clouds have shown him. The pen moves in soft strokes. The ink shines wet in the lamplight and then dries to a quiet brown. Each mark is a little greeting written down, a way of saying that the sky came to visit tonight. When he is done, he sets the pen in its rest and blows gently on the page, and the lamp flame leans and steadies and burns on. The astronomer lifts his cup of cold coffee and drinks it slowly, and it tastes fine to him, dark and earthy, the taste of a night well spent. Over the water, the clouds drift back together, closing their soft curtains over the stars. The stars are still there behind the gray. The way coals are still warm beneath their ash. He rolls his chart, ties it with a ribbon, and sets it among its sleeping brothers in the corner. A palace cat, gray with white paws, has climbed the stair and curls now by the brazier. The astronomer smiles, and the rain returns to the shutters, soft as ever. Before he banks the brazier for the night, the astronomer stands once more at the window and looks down, past the wet gardens and the outer walls, to the harbor below. Small lights ride the dark water there, lanterns on the moored kayaks, the slim rowing boats of the city, each one rocking gently at its rope. Down among them, boatmen are sleeping under oiled canvas while the rain drums its slow lullaby on the wood. The Bosphorus breathes in and out against the stone quays. The astronomer draws the shutter closed at last, and the tower light dims to an ember, and far below the harbor rocks itself softly to sleep. Far below the astronomer's tower, past the wet gardens and the dark cypress trees, the land slopes gently down to the water. The Golden Horn lies there in the rain, a long curved harbor folded into the heart of the city, black and calm and patient. Lantern light from the shore reaches out across it in soft yellow ribbons that bend with every ripple. The rain that washed the tower's copper dome falls here too, quieter now, settling into the sea without a sound. Old Istanbul leans toward its harbor the way a sleeper leans toward a warm pillow, and the water accepts the rain, and the night goes on. At the water's edge, the last boatman of the evening waits beside his kayak, one of the slim rowing boats that carry people across the harbor. His single passenger steps aboard slowly, wrapped in a heavy cloak, and settles onto the cushioned seat without a word. The boatman pushes off from the wet stone stairs, and the oars dip into the black water, rise and dip again. Each stroke leaves a small circle of ripples that the rain gently smooths away. The lantern at the bow makes a little room of gold around them, and the boat glides on through it, unhurried, carrying its quiet passenger softly toward home. Along the shore, under wide sheets of oilcloth stretched between poles, the fishermen sit close to their small driftwood fires. Their day's work is done, and now their hands move slowly through the brown nets, finding a loose knot here, a worn thread there, mending by firelight and by feel. The rain taps its patient rhythm on the oilcloth above them, and the fires answer with soft crackles and the smell of salt and cedar smoke. One man hums an old tune from the coast, low and wandering. The nets pile up like soft dark clouds at their feet, ready for morning, and the fires burn low, and no one hurries. Farther out, the moored ships rest at their anchors, tall trading vessels that have carried spices and cloth from far harbors. Their sails are rolled and tied, their decks are washed with rain, and their timbers creak in a slow, contented way, like an old house settling for the night. Wet ropes hold them gently to the shore, growing dark with rain. Below the decks, sailors sleep in narrow wooden bunks that rock a little with the water, a cradle motion as old as the sea itself. A single lamp swings softly in a cabin window, back and forth, and the ships breathe with the harbor and rest. All along the waterfront, the lanterns double themselves in the harbor. Each flame above has a twin below, a softer one, wavering in the black water like a candle seen through sleepy eyes. When a ripple passes, the reflected lights stretch and sway and then gather themselves again, patient as everything else tonight. A gray harbor cat, cousin to the cats of the palace above, sits on a coil of rope beneath an awning, dry and comfortable, watching the doubled lights with slow blinking eyes. The rain stitches tiny rings across the reflections. Above and below, the little fires keep each other company, and the harbor holds them all gently. Across the water, the ka'ik reaches the far shore, and the boatman holds it steady against the landing stones while his passenger steps up into the lamplit lane and walks slowly home beneath the eaves. The boatman ties his boat to its post with a knot his hands know by heart. He covers the cushions with oilcloth against the rain, lifts his lantern, and stands a moment looking back across the harbor at the scattered lights of the city. Then he walks up the lane toward his own small house, where soup is warm and a bed is waiting, and behind him the empty ka'ik rocks softly at its mooring. High on the palace walls above, Emin, the old night watchman, pauses on his slow rounds and looks down at the harbor he has known all his life. He sees the fishermen's fires like fallen stars along the shore, the doubled lanterns, the sleeping ships, and he nods to it all as if to an old friend. The rain gathers on the brim of his felt cap and drips away. Then he turns from the parapet toward the palace itself, where long, quiet corridors wait in lamplight, their carpets soft, their doors closed for the night. His lantern goes with him through the archway, and the harbor sleeps below, and the night goes on. Down at the harbor, the last lanterns rock gently on their moored boats, and the water carries their light in soft ripples toward the shore. Above them, on its wide hill, the palace rests behind walls dark with rain. Inside those walls, the night is even quieter. A doorway glows at the end of a garden path, and beyond it a corridor begins, carpeted and warm, smelling faintly of cedar smoke and wool. The rain that filled the harbor with its steady voice becomes a distant murmur here, softened by stone and timber. The palace has drawn its warmth inward, the way a sleeper draws a blanket close, and the night goes on. The corridor stretches ahead in a line of small oil lamps, each one set in its niche, each flame steady and low. Thick carpets cover the floor from wall to wall, red and deep blue, their patterns worn soft by years of slippered feet. Footsteps make no sound here. Even the palace itself seems to walk on tiptoe. The lamplight touches the painted ceiling and slides down the carved wooden doors, one after another, all of them closed for the night. Behind each door someone sleeps, wrapped in wool and quiet. The lamps breathe their small warmth into the passage, and the flames lean and settle, and the night goes on. A young servant moves along the passage with a stack of folded linens in her arms, white cloth still smelling of the day's sun, and of lavender kept in the cupboards. She walks slowly, in no hurry at all, pausing at a low chest to set the linens down and smooth the top sheet with one hand. The cloth is cool and soft under her palm. Somewhere behind the walls, the rain keeps its gentle drumming on the lead roofs, a sound like far-off water that never rises and never ends. She closes the chest with care, tucks a loose thread away, and carries the last of her calm errands into the warm dark. In an alcove near the sleeping chambers, a brass brazier glows with its last coals, a bowl of embers giving up its heat slowly, the way the day gives itself to night. The coals shift once with a whisper of ash and settle again, orange fading softly to deep red. Above them the air shimmers softly, warm and dry, carrying a faint sweetness of applewood. A palace cat has found this place, as cats always do, and lies curled on the warm stone beside the brazier, one paw over its nose. The embers dim by the smallest of degrees, patient as the rain, and the cat sleeps, and the night goes on. Emin, the old night watchman, walks his final round through the inner passages, his lantern held low so its light will not trouble any sleeper. He knows every carpet's edge, every step, every draft, and his feet find their way without asking his eyes for help. At each closed door he pauses only a breath, listening to the good silence behind it, then moves on. His round is less a duty now than a habit of kindness, a way of saying good night to the whole palace at once. The lantern swings gently at his side, painting slow circles of gold on the walls, and he walks on, unhurried, and the night goes on. His round carries him past the throne room, where the great door stands closed and the gilded chamber beyond keeps its splendor to itself in the dark. Even a palace's grandest room must sleep, and this one sleeps deeply, its cushions plumped, its mother-of-pearl inlay resting under dust sheets of shadow. Emin inclines his head to the door as he passes, an old courtesy offered to an empty hall. Here, at the very heart of the palace, the rain is only a memory of sound, a faraway softness above many layers of dome and lead. Emin's lantern light slips over the threshold stone and away, and the hall dreams on undisturbed. At the end of the last corridor, a small window looks out into the night, and Emin stops there a while, as he does at the close of every round. Beyond the glass, the courtyards shine faintly with rain. The domes are dark curves against a darker sky, and far below, the Bosphorus moves in its sleep. The lamps behind him burn low and even. The palace is all rest now, from its deepest chamber to its highest roof. Emin watches the soft rain falling on stone and cypress and water, falling as it has fallen all evening, patient and kind, and it seems ready to fall gently on, all through the night. The quiet corridors let him go gently. Emin steps out beneath the arcade, and the rain greets him like an old friend, soft on the stones of the courtyard. His lantern swings a little as he walks, laying a warm circle of light on the wet marble. The plane trees drip slowly, leaf to leaf, in no hurry at all. A palace cat pads beside him for a while, tail high, then curls away into a dry doorway to sleep. Emin's rounds are done. Every door is closed, every lamp is low, every soul is resting. He walks toward the gatehouse, and the rain walks with him. The gatehouse waits for him, small and warm, its one window glowing amber through the rain. Emin lifts the latch and steps inside, and the night air follows him in for a moment before the door settles shut behind him. He hangs his lantern on its iron hook by the door, where it has hung every night for many years, and the flame steadies, content to be home. His ring of keys goes on the peg beside it, giving one soft chime, then holding still. Rain taps the window glass, patient and kind. The little room holds its warmth around him, and the night goes on. The brazier glows in the corner, a low bowl of coals breathing slow orange light. Emin feeds it a small piece of cedar, and the sweet smoke rises and settles into the beams of the ceiling, where the smoke of countless quiet nights has settled before it. He lowers himself into his chair by the fire, and the chair receives him the way it always does. A wool blanket, thick and soft, goes over his knees and up around his shoulders. The gray cat of the gate appears from somewhere warm and pours itself into his lap. The coals whisper, the rain answers, everything is as it should be. From his chair, Emin listens to the palace sleeping. Rain drums gently on the great lead domes, a low and even song that never hurries and never ends. Somewhere the kitchens stand cold and clean, their copper pots hanging in rows, dreaming of morning bread. The corridors he walked are dark now, holding their warmth the way stone does, giving it back slowly through the night. In their rooms the sleepers breathe, each one wrapped in wool, each one carried a little deeper with every breath. Emin closes his eyes to hear it better. The palace is a ship at anchor, rocking softly, going nowhere safe. The night lifts slowly like smoke above the gatehouse roof. Below, the palace lies folded within its walls, courtyard within courtyard, garden within garden, all of it glossed with rain and dim with sleep. The plane trees stand patient in the dark. The last lamps make small gold points along the arcades, fewer now and fainter, like embers at the end of a long, good fire. Beyond the walls, the old city spreads its wet roofs down the hills, chimney by chimney, dome by dome, every window dark, every door shut kindly for the night. The rain falls on all of it equally, gentle as a blessing, and asks for nothing. Farther still, the Bosphorus moves in its long dark bed, the wide water that carries the city's dreams between its shores. The caiques, the slim rowing boats of the harbor, lie tied along the quays, nodding on the small waves, their oars shipped and sleeping. Across the water, the lamps of Uskudar glow soft and few, each one a household breathing slow behind its shutters. Rain meets the sea without a sound, drop after drop received and kept. A late gull settles on a piling and tucks its head beneath its wing. The water rocks the boats rock the ropes, and the whole harbor sighs itself to sleep. And so the night holds everything at last. The palace and the hills, the water and the boats, the cats curled in doorways and the sleepers in their wool, all of it rests beneath one steady rain. In the gatehouse, Emin's eyes close. The gray cat purrs against the blanket. The coals dim from orange to rose to a deep, contented dark. The lantern by the door burns lower and lower still, keeping just enough light to be kind. The rain goes on, soft on the domes, soft on the sea, telling its one long story to the sleeping city. And the story slows, and the lamp burns lower, and the night gently goes on.